All right, this is number 2, my testimony. I want to back up the last one. I believe I stopped talking about, I started talking about, suicide was in my mind from a very young age, probably since I started going to middle school. But I just kind of, it was always kind of a backup plan for me. I was like, I'm just going to keep going. And when I can't take it anymore, I'm going to take my life. And that was always in the back of my mind. That was my backup plan if things got to where I couldn't take it anymore. I was gonna take my life. And I was only, there's only, I went over all the different ways to how I was gonna take my life. And there was only one that I could really go through with, or I thought I could go through with, because I'm a coward. So anything that involved pain or taking a little bit of time, I skipped all those. But so I finally, ended up on, if I was going to take my life, I knew how I was going to do it. Anyway, I want to back up a little bit. I want to talk about, I completely forgot to talk about my relationships with people and, how I was in the world. I always, I thought I was a pretty good person up until I came to Christ. But I was just fooling myself. So I always had friends. I always had family. My siblings, I was never very close to because the separation between us was too great. So never close with my siblings. And all my friends, I had, all different kinds of friends. And remember, I didn't have anything to stand for. I was an introvert. That's the word I was looking for. I was introverted. I was not like I am now, where, I can share all of me. There's nothing inside of me that I can talk now. So I had some of my best friends from my teenage years up to my 40s, where a couple of my best friends were gay. So, and I was always scared to, I never stood for anything. So I was always going along with what everybody else said, all my friends said. Because I always thought I was stupid, or, maybe the world always made me feel like I was stupid. So I didn't understand how anything worked. So I just kept my mind and listened and agreed. I was non-confrontational. I didn't like to argue with anybody. I went along with everything, even when things that were said and done that internally I was like, this isn't right. No, I don't agree with that. But I would keep that to myself because I thought I was stupid and I didn't think I had anything important to say. And I thought everybody else had it figured. Everybody else seemed to have it figured out. So I just I kept my mouth shut most of the time and never really got into arguments with people. I never debated. I just, just smiled and shook my head for the longest time. So I went along with all these other different views of how they thought the world was. And, I thought I was a good person. I thought I was, I was tolerant and open-minded. And so when I started going through things, though, so I thought I had good friends. I thought I had good family. And, I did, when I was younger, I was kind of, I hit my teenage years. I started being kind of disobedient to my parents. Me and my dad were always button heads. Like I just always thought, me and my dad did not have the best relationship growing up. And I was always I was like, I don't want to be like my dad. So I was, anything, my dad thought or said, I was always going the opposite way. And I would say I was a registered Democrat from the time I could vote till, I think even now, I haven't even switched it yet. I honestly don't even care about voting though, because it's like choosing the lesser of two evils, honestly. But anyway, so my relationships started to deteriorate over time. Like I said, it was just like the alcohol and the drugs. Um, they seemed good for a while and kept going with them, but eventually all that stuff fell apart when the love was tested of my family and my friends. When things got hard, the love seemed to fail, or that's what Satan was convincing me of. With my friends, it was real though. They bailed on me when things got tough, because I came to a point when I was about 38 where I started getting fed up with people. I started getting fed up with the world, and I started not being so non-confrontational. But it was what it was is like God was starting to show me people for what they were, in the world for what it was, like a couple years before I was born again. And when he was revealing all this stuff to me, it only added to me not wanting to be here anymore. I couldn't take it. I didn't believe it. My friends all bailed on me. I kind of, I was testing them. I started calling them out on their bull crap. So where before it was like I would just smile and agree just to avoid confrontation. Well, I got to a point when I was like 38 where I had enough. So when people started saying something that wasn't right, I called them out on it. And when I did that, they didn't like it very much. So they were only my friends till I disagreed with them. And then they all bailed on me. Every last one of them. Every last one of them. So they were never my friends at all. Oh yeah, God was teaching me too. And at about 38, I didn't know it was God at the time, but I started sticking up for myself. I started having a backbone. Like I said, I started speaking out on things when they bothered me. And that I pushed everybody away too. Oh, and I was like, I was done with the world. I was ready to commit suicide. So I started pushing people away too, because when I killed myself, I wanted to make it easier on everybody where it didn't affect their life in a way that, hurt them. So I pushed everybody away, kind of subconsciously, but on purpose at the same time, if that makes sense. I didn't know I was doing that yes, I did. I was purposely doing that. But I was just sick of all the lies. I was sick of the deception. I was sick. Something's always been wrong in this world, and I was never able to pinpoint exactly what it was. And I was always finding, the answer to what was wrong with the world in the wrong places. So 38. Yeah, I lost my job. I had a little bit of money in my account. I was living at my dad's house at the time. And the house I was living in was very old. It needed a bunch of work. I put 10 years of my most productive adult life into this house that wasn't mine. Me and my dad had a rent-to-own agreement. But, after living there for 8 years, I was ready to buy a house. I could have bought a house. I had good credit. I had the money to down pay it. But I was stuck on this. We had a verbal agreement between me and him that it was going to be a rent-to-own type situation. And then over the course of, like 8 years, went to him multiple times and asked him to sell me the house. And he always said no. There was always something that he wasn't happy with. So I would, whatever he wasn't happy with, whether it be, the job, the amount of money I was making, or it wasn't having health insurance, or it was this and that. But every time I came to him to ask to buy the house from me, he said no. So the last time I asked him, I was like, well, if he says this time, like, because I needed something at that point in time. Like, most of my friends had families, had houses, had good careers. Like, they were set. They were following what the world wanted them to do. So the world was rewarding them well. And I was kind of like, I felt like, I was 38 and Like I felt like I needed that house. You know, I didn't feel like a man, I guess, because all these other people, on paper they had all these things that said that they were a good person and they were succeeding in life, so they must be good people. So they got houses, they got jobs, they got good financial situations, families. Everybody else looked good. I had nothing, so the house was like I wanted the house, and I cared so much about it, and I treated it like I was mine because I thought it was going to be mine someday. So I put 10 years, man. I took care of two different properties. I put as much money into the house. Not only was I paying rent, but then I was also, like I said, I was treating it like on my mind. It was mine. I was paying for things that a renter shouldn't normally pay for. I was taking care of the property. I dumped tens of thousands of dollars into this, the land and landscaping and transforming. Well, I was better at landscaping than doing other things, serious things for repairing houses. But I loved the house so much. I loved it. It was an idol of mine. It ended up being an idol. God showed me that. But I was treating it like I was mine because I thought my dad was going to sell it to me. So when you kept saying no, I just felt, I was like, well, I have nothing to live for now. So I did not feel like a man. I had, nothing. I felt like he was using the house as a way to control me and, manipulate me and live how he wanted me to live. And I couldn't take that anymore. I wanted to live how I wanted to live. I wanted to be independent. And I didn't, it made me feel like a child still. So I was like, it was like the straw. It was the last straw. The last time I went and asked him for him to sell the house to me. And he said no. And I was like, well, I'm going to prepare to kill myself then. So I didn't, all this extra money I had in the bank, no job. I was like, well, I'm going to before I kill myself, I've got this extra money. I'm going to I had credit cards too. And I had good credit. So I had like 3 different credit cards and that were at zero at the time. But so I had this money and I had these credit cards. So I was like, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with the world. And I was always looking for God too, like looking for God, who God really was. But I was always looking in the wrong places for him. So at a last ditch attempt to not kill myself, it's like, well, I'm gonna go find God. So for a year and a half, 2 years, I did what made me happy, and I searched for God the way I pursued him, but I did not pursue him here. Like I said, I pursued the God that I kind of made up, that I didn't understand who he was. So I was pursuing nothing. But I kind of, it was like this last ditch attempt. I'm gonna be alone because I just wanted time to figure things out, and I was like, I'm not gonna go back to work. I want all this time to search for God. Well, after 2 years of doing that, and drugs and alcohol just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and I was heavy into meth at the time. Oh yeah, meth's been a big one throughout my life. But yeah, man, I don't, like I said, I was doing whatever I could get my hands on: pills, coke, meth, hallucinogens, weed, alcohol, whatever. And it all ended up leading me to a dead end or a wall. And once I hit that wall, COVID hit in 2020. My cat died. And then I started my, whatever, looking for God. I quit my job, just focused on my house and my yard and the flowers, because that made me happy. Working outside in my yard, working on the landscaping and stuff, that made me happy. Well, I guess everything that I was doing because I wanted to do it it made me happy, but it was just temporary. It wasn't a real happiness. It wasn't joy. It was fake, and it was dependent on circumstances and material things. So it wasn't a real happiness. So, like I said, you can only go down that road for so long. It seems like a good road. You don't realize anything's wrong. You don't realize you're as lost as you are. So I did that for 2 years, and then so all my funds ran out. I maxed out all my credit cards. I guess I did work for DoorDash and Instacart for like a year, but it was one of those things where it's like I only worked very minimum just to pay certain bills. I stopped paying my dad rent because I was like, well, he's not going to sell me the house. I got pissed off at him, but at the same time, I quit paying him rent. But all the money that I would have paid him for rent, I dumped into the house and the yard. So he actually ended up benefiting off that, whether he knew it or not. I increased the property value. I transformed the yard, and then eventually I did get good at with like some concrete. I redid my basement as far as like all the concrete work that needed to be done on the walls and stuff. I went around the foundation and fixed it up as much as I could. I built a really awesome patio. But all these things, so I chased all these things. I went as far as I could, and then once I ran out of money, I was like, well, that's it. I haven't found God, so I'm done. So I had everybody pushed away. Everybody was mad at me. Nobody was talking to me anymore. I was a drug dealer too at one point in time. I'm sorry this is kind of all over the place. I try not to think about this stuff anymore. I'm trying to move forward and not live in the past. So after I'm done, sharing this testimony, like I'm probably not going to talk about this stuff ever again. Marijuana. I was only marijuana. I had never sold any hard drugs or any pills or anything like that. I couldn't because I've always had somewhat of a decent conscience and a decent heart. Like I said, I considered myself a good person. I considered myself a good person, but when looking through the lens of God, later on, come to find out, I was not there was plenty wrong with me, plenty, but I accounted myself a good person. So ran out of money, ran out of friends. That backup plan of suicide, that was like, I'm gonna keep going until I can't take it anymore. Run out. Well, that finally got down to that month, that week, and then it was finally that day, and I drew. And guns have always been a big part of my life ever since I was young. My dad started off taking me target shooting when I was younger than 10, and hunting, and I always had guns around, and I had a concealed carry permit, man. I didn't touch on that. For the last 2 years, I was everywhere I went. I had a loaded gun on my hip, concealed. In the way that I rolled around with a loaded gun was because I did a little bit of practicing. I was very familiar with my weapon, so I was going around with a holstered, loaded gun, hammer back, safety off, one in the chamber. Because if you do if you're into guns or whatever, that a second counts. A second's everything. So you save so much time having one in the chamber. All you got to do is pull it out of the holster. You don't got to hit the safety. You don't got to put one in the chamber. You don't got to rack it. You don't got to put that hammer back. Like, you pull it out and you pull the trigger. So, because I was always living in a state of fear. Remember, I've been bullied my whole life. I'm kind of a smaller guy. So, there's predators out there that see me as prey. So I got tired of being prey. So I was always ready I was done being bullied, and I was done for people marking me as prey. So I was going around with the mentality that if somebody came and tested me or came at me, that gun was coming out of my holster and I was going to empty the clip into them like that. I was mentally prepared for it. I was physically prepared for it. It never happened, thank God. Like, I was out in my yard doing yard work with a loaded gun on my hip. I would go, it was just on me all the time. But thank God I never that never came up because I would have killed somebody in a heartbeat. So anyway, the day came. It came to the day. It's like, this is the day. This is the day we're doing it. So blinds were drawn. Nobody was talking to me anymore. It was time. So I put that gun in my mouth and I was about to pull the trigger. And I had a spiritual experience. I felt like the lights in the room changed, and I felt like I dropped down like 10 feet. It's the best way I can describe it. Like, I just felt like everything dropped. Like, I felt like I got a taste of hell. And anyway, I cried out to God for help. And I got this. I was going to pull the trigger. I was determined to, but last second, I cried out to God for help. And not knowing at the time, He gave me a shot of energy, the Holy Spirit. I think it was the Holy Spirit. At the time, I thought maybe it was an angel, or I thought a lot of weird things. I didn't understand what happened to me, but He gave me a shot of energy, and all of a sudden, I was like, no, I gotta fight for my life with everything that I have. So I put the gun down, and at this time, I didn't realize this was all spiritual. I thought I was crazy. So the next day, I called, my family and told them what had happened, and I was like, they're like, you need to go get a mental evaluation. I agreed. I was the one that came up with the plan to give all my guns away. So I freely gave up my guns. I went and voluntarily checked myself into a psych ward and, told them everything that happened. I'm like, I think I have bipolar. And guess what? They're like, they come back with a diagnosis, and yeah, we think you got bipolar too. So they ended up medding me up, and they sent me home, and that got me by for another month. And then while on these psych meds, I was still wanting to kill myself. And now I didn't have any guns, so I was mad at myself because I was like, well, now I really want to kill myself, and I don't have any guns. So I started thinking of other ways to kill myself. And the next one that I came up with was a hose in my exhaust pipe in my car into the window, and I was going to do that way. Oh, and I was going to take a bunch of sleeping pills so I could pass out, and then I would, from the exhaust, the exhaust would do the rest after I passed out. But so I was planning on doing that, and then all of a sudden, these on my YouTube, not my channel, but my subscription, all on what's recommended, all of a sudden these videos started popping up, a couple of them on Jesus, and I was never interested in watching that sort of thing before, anything and everything but Jesus. But I was like, I clicked on one and I watched it, and it hit something in me, and then I started watching another one. Anyways, it was two different gentlemen. One of them, his name was Mark the Messenger. He's on YouTube. And the other guy I've tried to find, but I can't find him. I just remember one of his videos. He was going around to college campuses. He was a white dude. One of them, he was like preaching at just testifying and telling people about Jesus on a college campus in a jumpsuit. And another time, he was in a neighborhood it was during Christmas, and he was with his wife, and he had a big light up cross on his chest, and he was preaching the gospel there. But between those two gentlemen, they told me how to come to Jesus, and so I took their advice. I did what they said. I came to him. I repented. And I did it honestly, and it was in the middle of the night during a blizzard outside. I went outside to do it. And it was like it was a long night. It was a very intimate night, and it was. Anyway, I repented, and I asked him. I admitted that I was a sinner. I asked him for forgiveness. I had admitted that he was real. I asked him to help me. I asked him to save me. And I talked to him I was just honest. I went over. I went over everything that I could remember throughout my life where I went wrong and apologized. And I wasn't really expecting anything. I had no idea about the Holy Spirit. I had no idea about being born again. So these guys told me how to properly come to Christ, but I didn't know about what came after that. I wasn't expecting anything. And I went to bed that night and I woke up and I didn't know who I was anymore. Like everything was new. Things were fuzzy. Like I knew who I was, but things were different too. Everything was new. Everything looked new. Everything sounded new. It literally felt fuzzy. Being called, how Jesus describes it as being born again. Like I felt like I had just come out of my mother's womb at 40 years old. So I had no idea about the Holy Spirit. I had no idea about being born again. But I went to bed one person and I woke up another. And when I woke up, he had given me new eyes and new ears. And immediately, without having a Bible, knowing anything more than what I had already known, I could see the world for what it really was. I went to watch TV, and the things that I was watching, all of a sudden, I was aware of, things that offended God when I shouldn't have had that knowledge. The things I was watching, the music I was listening to, what was in my house, all these different idols and all these different gods, and I was aware of everything that bothered God. So I ended up, because I used to be heavy into video games. Video games I was very addicted to technology. I was addicted to my phone. I was addicted to porn. I was addicted to streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Disney. I had them all. Entertainment. I loved movies. I spent so much time watching TV, just getting high and watching soulless garbage. That was my life. Entertainment, and they call it entertainment. I couldn't watch that stuff anymore. And since that point in time, all I can watch, and I've tried to go back and watch that sort of stuff again, and none of it, I can't do it anymore. It bothers me. I'm not interested in it, and God hates it. The Holy Spirit hates it. So like I couldn't listen to stuff that I was just listening to the day before. I couldn't watch things that I was just watching the day before. My house, man, my house was full of crap that God hated. So some of it I threw away, some of it I burned. And then I was going around. Oh, and I was in a very vulnerable state. So they didn't tell me like the enemy was going to attack me in a vulnerable state, because when I got saved, I wasn't in a church. I wasn't surrounded by a community. Nobody was helping me with anything. I didn't have a Bible. So I was in a very vulnerable state. So I was getting attacked hard by demons. Hard. To where it freaked me out for a month. And I was going to different churches, and you know and God showed me some things too. Well, when I was born again, all of a sudden there was a sense of urgency, like time was running out. So I honestly thought I thought we were in tribulation already when I was born again. Which I'm still not sure about that. I'm pretty sure we're not yet, but I can't be 100% sure on that. I'm not sure about the rapture. There's all this debate on whether there's a pre-tribulation rapture, post-tribulation rapture, mid-tribulation rapture. Like, why is there a debate about it? So I'm still trying to figure that out. That's not important. What's important is right now. So I'm not going to worry about the future. I'm not going to put a date on anything. I'm living every day like when he comes, he comes. But I'm going to live every day like it could be my last day going forward.